Governance and Operations. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Governance and Operations Committee meeting of August 19th, 2024. Just a reminder that members of the public can be present in the council committee room during the meeting, and also you can observe the meeting via Zoom. And the webinar will be recorded and published to the city's YouTube site. First item on the agenda is the recommendation that the agenda for the Governance and Operations Committee meeting be adopted. Is there someone that wants Councillor Martin and Councillor Butler? All those in favor? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item number 2 is communications, and this one is the 2024 to 2034 Canada Community Building Fund Agreement, and I will pass that on to Ms. Lucchini.
Actually, Colin, do you want to speak to that, please?
Okay, over to Mr. McClure.
Thanks, Mayor Jones. Thank you, Council, for joining us today. So again, an exciting announcement that the province has negotiated with the federal government, which used to be called the gas tax, is now this new funding program, and they've committed for 10 years. So that's a good news story for us. One of the changes that came with this particular agreement was the fact that they wanted to have a resolution from council. I'm not 100% sure why. We've been doing this funding. I think we've reported pretty annually as part of budget on what we're going to use the funds for. We've always provided the year-end commitment to UBCM, who, again, sort of an interesting flow of the money. It doesn't actually, UBCM sort of responsible for this, which again is a bit unique. I mean, yes, they're sort of that spin-off of, or they're part of the government, but not part of the government. But anyway, we've always done the reporting to them to say what we've used the funds for. And so that's that will continue as we go forward. There's a few new stipulations if people look through some of the rulings, particular housing being able to use it. Another big change for me on the use of the funds was actually can use it to buy fire trucks. That's something that is new because that was one of the pressures. You could use it for creating a new space, a new fire hall, those sorts of things, but you couldn't use it for equipment. Some of those things have changed. You can see that we are not significantly more than last year because I think 415 is about what we had. We're about 424, and that lasts for about 3 years. And then we've got a bit of a lift there in the next couple of years, but that gets us our first 5 years. And again, that's the commitment. It's part of it, as they note in the background, there's calculations that are involved, but I'm not expecting any changes on that. But it's, again, nice to have that ongoing federal gas tax commitment. It makes me feel better when I'm fueling up my vehicle and paying so much per liter that I know that the city of Trail and the other communities in our province are getting this funding to put towards capital, which should mean less tax increases overall for the municipality. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We're just going through the steps of this year, which is a unique for the last number of years that this program has been in place to need a resolution from council. So.
Okay, any questions for Mr. McClure?
Just in terms of efficiencies, we won't need to do this every year. Like this will count for the entire 10-year.
For the agreement, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know if there'll be any updates later, but yes.
I had a quick question myself. Is there a time frame that we have to use the money?
Not particularly, but they have really also been moving towards asset management. I don't know if you would have seen that in the document as well. And so there's, I think, getting tighter and tighter. Where's your asset management policy? We want to see that we're giving this funding. So that's why it's good to have a 10-year program here. Like at least that's locked in, because that was part of the concern, is that people are not on purpose, but sort of hoarding some of the money, again, even if you are, that interest that's earned on it has to go back, and you can't just go and use that for your general fund or things like that. But sometimes smaller places, it's starting to build. Ours has been in a good spot. We used it big chunk of it, obviously, for taking care of the Butler Park, getting that thing done. And we know that we've got pressure in particular in our water fund, and I would say that that would be an area where we will be able to use it, take the pressure off increases to rates, in particular for water. And as we sort of, again, increase that rate, but take the pressure off on how much we need to increase it over the next number of years. So we don't have a lot. When I say that, meaning, you do one big water line and it can be all gone, right, sort of thing. So we're in a $1.3 million, I think is the number from leftover. And then of course we get this year's amount. We'd already committed some to the water construction for this year, kind of ongoing sort of what we may need it for. And again, always going to be other pockets that we need help with on capital costs, whether or not it's from a whoops or it's a case of just costs being escalated higher as we move down our capital program.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments on this, the recommendation is before you. And I'll just read that out. The recommendation is that council approve the designation of the mayor and the corporate officer as authorized signatories for the purpose of receiving and managing funds from the Union of Municipalities Canada Community Building Fund 2024 to 2034 agreement. So Councillor Benson and Councillor Hansen. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. That was carried unanimously. Item number 2.2 is the 2024 second quarter report, and I will hand that over to Mr. McClure.
Yes, I'm quite excited that we've got this in process. We will now, going forward, having this quarterly report each year. It's as of June 30th, obviously with July and kind of our shorter time periods of meetings, it's a little bit delayed. It's in August. But again, if we had an early August meeting, not suggesting we have that, but just that if we did, it would be timely that way. And we will have another one in the third quarter for September, and then obviously we'll be at year end. This is such a great tool, not only for staff, but I really believe for council. We do spend so much time on budget when I think about how many meetings we have between October and May. And sometimes I think you can kind of, okay, we've got that part done, but like what's happening with these projects? So getting updates, making sure that staff are looking at the projects that they're responsible for. Giving the update as to, because you'll notice a few of the in the verbiages that we won't get to some of the ones that we thought we were going to do, and it's not. And I think it's important for council to know that, because they may have people asking them questions like what's happening with this one or what's happening with that project, and also just to speak to the patterns. And I would hope that as council continues on and we work together, you'll see a pretty consistent pattern, and you will start to pick up the anomalies almost already. If you look at this, taxes, we sort of fill that out, and that should be pretty close to what is budgeted. And if it's not, then you're going to have what's going on, but you can see where that fits in. Sales of services, we've had a couple of years here where we are getting back into pre-COVID sort of numbers and improving on that because of this relationship, even with TRP, and seeing more funds coming in for people joining our recreation. Again, you have to understand too, the trail's a bit unique in that we sort of run the recreation. Most of the places like a Nelson and a Castlegar, that is run through the regional district, so you don't have these types of numbers. But again, it's great to see that being entrepreneurial, in whether it's the airport or having our own facilities here, that those are, where are they tracking? What do the numbers look like? And again, sometimes there can be the anomalies. Like last year, we had, I tried to talk about a bit about this in my verbiage, but just that you're like, hey, well, why is our revenue so much lower in sales and services this year? It's like, well, we don't do garbage anymore, so we don't need to collect for that contract. So that's one of the reasons. And so sometimes that kind of makes it difficult for percentages wise, but to be where we're at right now for sales of services, what we budgeted, we're ahead. But we also do know that we go into a bit of a quieter period over the summer. Pool shuts down, not as many people are using the facilities, and then we kind of ramp right back up again with people using the rink. I've heard that we've got great time requests for the new kids rink. So some of those improvements that we've done and now that it's available, so we're starting to see the benefits of those. Other revenue, again, good to see where those are tracking. And last year, you might be saying, hey, how come our budget's way lower? It's like, well, we had that commitment from the Murphy Foundation to help fund for the kids rink, and that's where that donation revenue came in, kind of other revenue category. Investment income, again, yeah, we're ahead of last year, which is good news story. We do know that the rates are declining, so we won't see as high of that revenue. So I think that I'm believing that we're gonna be ahead of what we budgeted, but again, you might look at it and say, oh, we're way ahead, and it's like, well, as these rates drop, that's gonna, we're not gonna earn as much as we had in the first 6 months. And when I say grants, unconditional, hopefully the council understands, we have two funds that come in from there. One is the small community grant, the other portion is the shared revenue from traffic fine revenue. And again, too, it's not a case if we had full-time police, doing lots of speeding tickets that we would all of a sudden see a big benefit in your community for revenue. This is shared, and again, there's a calculation that comes on with that. We're pretty close. I mean, it's nothing to worry about, but you can notice that in the last couple of years, those revenues have decreased. We can see a bit of a trend there. Again, remembering that the province during COVID and the years afterwards, they doubled some of these payments. They really tried to flow some money in on that. So I've got no grief on kind of where the numbers are for budget. Talking about the grants conditional, again, if you take away sort of the $3 million grant that we got from the Growing Communities Fund that we got last year, you subtract that, you can see that we're basically in line. We get kind of the normal grant processes that's sort of sitting there. Although we did get some upfront grants this year, or one-time grants. We received $182,000 to help out with planning, especially because the province had, put a lot of pressure on our staff, particularly Ms. Lucchini and Ms. Butler, on getting our zoning updated. And we'll be able to also use those fundings towards our OCP. And the other component that came in was the climate action funding. They sort of did a bigger chunk of funding for that this year, but it's to, again, almost like that upfront funding that will get deferred because they kind of, I think, gave a 3-year amount, and that just kind of happened recently from what we annually get. And so again, that's another area that we need to focus on using those funds we have for climate action. Again, general government in line and tracking better, I think, than we were with as compared to last year, and number of reasons for that. One of them is that we are underway on the OCP. Last year we had the money in the budget for the OCP, but we didn't have much going on that. And also the costs. Yes, we got additional grant revenue, but we also have additional costs as we've gone through the cost of, or the expense of getting over the zoning underway. Again, protective services, tough spot there. Feel for our sergeant. We did have our semi-annual meeting with them, and they are low right now, but there is also a real hope that in the next 6 months that they're gonna be into a healthier spot. I know that council maybe heard that a couple times now in the last year and a half that you've been in the process, but there was again a gratefulness to RCMP for making us one of the locations that is high, a focus for recruitment and some of those other things that they're trying to do. And when I say that, meaning RCMP and getting our trail is known as being under service right now. And so there is a commitment, and it's taking longer. They did have, talking to the sergeant at that meeting, sort of a three multiple different RCMP officers twist their ankle. So he's like, I don't know what I need to do here, buy them higher boots or ankle protection, but so he's got a bunch of people that are off. We will be coming back, but just to have such a same injury at the same time, already at a depleted force, it's really putting pressure on him, but and the RCMP overall. So, but again, they really felt optimistic on what the future's looking like in the next 6 months to get back up to a much higher or a better level of their authorized strength than what they've been at. Again, too, just one of those things, you're like, why is all the blanks in the environmental health services? Again, that would have been where we would have had our garbage contract. And that's again, too, now not gone, but combined RDCK as part of their environmental plan, having both garbage and compost being picked up at the same time, same vehicle, makes a lot of sense. And so but they are the ones now that are responsible for that cost. Our taxpayers are still involved on that when they create the rate for that service. Did we lose anything? No, okay. Public health and welfare services, again, that's our cemetery. You can see it's a little bit lower than last year, and one of the main factors when I looked through the analysis was that we just didn't have as much snow clearing, which makes sense to people who think about what happened this winter. Again, we still have winter coming. It's one of the things that you have to be careful of not saying we're not gonna have any more, because it could snow from November until December, and that would get those numbers back up there. Is in line. We benefits of the TR compared to last year. The budget is significantly higher. We are trending again in a line that makes that we're comfortable with. It will be a place that we will continue to watch. What numbers are we at the right numbers for that budget? But feeling a lot more confident. I did also speak to council before that we don't just all of a sudden, if we don't have snow, we don't lay off a bunch of our public works workers. We tend to just use them on other locations, and that sometimes can see where we're, transportation services is under similar kind of percentage as last year. Snow clearing being the major factor for this year. Again, reiterating that we haven't been through the last part of the year end of part of winter, so we'll see where that goes. Yes, I think that things are tracking well, and again, can be a bit disconcerting sometimes when you look down on the capital side and you're like, well, I'm supposed to have $16 million worth of capital and we've only spent $12 million. But we do have capital projects underway, much like the Daniel Street routage, and the invoices tend to track later. So even though the work's being done, you're maybe not seeing that, that hitting the books right now. Certainly when we get into September here, we will see, more bills being paid on this capital. And so that will hopefully give you comfort that we are getting this work done. And it's also makes sense because most of the construction season is not going to start till May anyway. So we tend to cover those into the fall, and then it's usually year end where we're doing the accruals as they get their paperwork done for the construction work that they've had. Anyway, I would open up your worship to questions from council if they have any.
Any questions from council for Mr. McClure? No.
Just a comment that I like the format of this, and I like that we're gonna be doing this every quarter keeps us
Again, just to be clear, I don't do it for the first quarter of March.
That's forgiven.
Yes, okay.
Budget.
Yes.
That was very, very detailed, Colin.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. There's some things in here that I forgot that you were working on, that we were working on as council. Yeah, so it's great to see that it's in there and that we're doing pretty good so far.
Well, thank you. And again, it is sometimes that reminder. And if you're seeing something or you've got a question like, hey, I thought, when I look at my back on things, I thought we were working on this. If you don't see the update here, please send me a question. The other component, if there's no questions on that part of the document, I just really wanted to emphasize the positive things that we're seeing with the TRP change and those charts and, more work to be done. And when I say that, even if you look, I think in the 2023 year, you'll look that Burlington all of a sudden has one of the highest percentages of revenues in the pie chart, and that's someone that's running a hockey school. Mm-hmm. So yes, they're paying for the ice to do that, but we know that there's kids from away and from trail, and so we are working, and it's taking time, but working with our partners. And how do we find out from baseball, from soccer? We heard anecdotally from baseball that they were so pleased that the TRP for Roslyn that they joined, and that they were seeing big numbers, especially with their goals for the little leagues coming. And so we need to find a way that's not onerous, but also gives us a sense on what's happening. Because I think there you would have just whoever handed in the sheet to pay the hockey team, but you don't know if there was 5 guys from Roslyn, 4 from Montrose, those sorts of things. And so how do we tap into that? Is there a way to get that information? And we're committed to doing that. And I know that Roslyn as well had this on their agenda just last week, And I'm looking forward to working with them on a long-term, agreement. The other part that I know that they've come in, they've certainly helped us with some of the data, mining, that when you look at the percentages, you can see what a pop that they have. And then so, I would hope that as we work together with the Warfields and the Montrose and the Fruitfields, and as they get to see their percentages, that there's a better sense of who's using the facility. And again, it's, we want to have these facilities, it costs money to operate them, both capital and operating. And so those individuals that are in charge for those organizations say, yeah, we want to contribute because we know our community is using it. That's a real positive.
Okay,
Again, I don't know if anyone has any questions on the charts or they could read them. That might be a challenge, I thought, for some of them. But I thought it was great too, because it does give you the breakdown on, what's happening. It's the memberships, it's the admissions, yes, but you can see where, some of the field house rentals or Aquafit, those sorts of things as well.
doesn't look like there's any questions.
Okay.
Okay, so the recommendation is before you, and that recommendation is that the 2024 second quarter financial report for the 6 months ending June 30th, 2024 be received for information. Councillor Martin and Councillor Wilson. Okay, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. 2.3 is the Daniel Street Park Playground replacement.
Yes. This was pretty straightforward. Again, one of those commitments from council that we have a plan. We are trying to look at, what's the priority. We're going from pea gravel to, the other bark kind of thing, and then probably in 3 years we'll have to go back to pea gravel as they change the different safety requirements. But one of the ones in here, we committed to that, really hoping that we can get this, we got the RP, we've got the individuals, we want to get it done for the beginning of the year. This park also is not easy to get to. So one of the things that I think is important is that as we do move into our disability committee is, this one may not be the easiest to get to in the first place. There is some sensory equipment there, but again, we are wanting to change the culture at the city. This is what the province has mandated, as well as we look at all kinds of different, whether it's letdowns for getting on our streets, for doors that able-bodied people take for advantage, and we are. As this community gets going and as staff get educated on looking at things in a different lens sometimes. And so, and getting our help from the province with individuals that have lived experience and can help us see that. But in this particular one, I just wanted to talk a bit about that as far as this particular playground. Sorry, I'm done there.
So, just a quick question.
Yes.
I'm not sure where this playground is.
It's just up here, actually.
Oh,
Yeah. And we've had a few people ask us about that, and we had to get the map out and go, okay, well, is it at the end of the street, or is it at this end?
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
just up here.
And what is the surface of that? Do you know what that looks like yet, or
Well,
the ground of the?
Yeah, and I think they talked about the
Did they?
material in there. Sorry? Yes. Yeah, so it's wood fiber. So again,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's a wood fiber.
Yeah.
Like I said before, they were pea gravel. They change it out every once in a while. Sometimes they have rubber ones, but the one that we have here is the wood fiber.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like mulch?
Yeah, that would, well, I think, but it's fire.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't go. Joe.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McClure? Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Colin, for speaking to the sensory situation. That's something that I know that there are a lot of parents that are asking. Do we have, is that something into consideration? Do we take that? Do we look at that? So thank you for mentioning that. That's something that's there. If this report had been done just itemizing the playgrounds, it would be nice just to have that publicly available, I think, just so that if people live in different areas, they know where their playgrounds are at. on the list of ones unless there are certain things that bump them up, but it would be nice to have that publicly available just to kind of see where the playgrounds are ranking for when they're going to be due for an upgrade.
Thank you. Yep, makes sense. I'll ask that if we can have a note on that, maybe just in the minutes for some action to, or someone remind me after the meeting to look into that, please.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll move on to the recommendation. And the recommendation is that council approve the award of the Daniel Street Park Playground Replacement Contract to Park and Play Design Company Limited with the base price of $100,000 plus all applicable taxes, fees, and charges. So I'll make that motion. Councillor Benson, is there a seconder, please? I'll second that. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cashel. Okay, all those in favor? 3. I think there's a little bit of a gap going on here. Can we do that again, please? Everybody just hold your hand up if you're in favor of it. Okay, so that was carried. Thank you. Councillor Butler, were you in favor or no?
I'm in favor, Mayor Jones, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, I know there seems to be a bit of a gap here. That's good. Okay, it was carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Okay, item 2.4, update on the Victoria Street Bridge encampment fire and bylaw services. Ms. Butler?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. Just after the fire happened on the Victoria Street Bridge, we had a lot of questions coming through about what action was taken, what are the plans in the future, what happens if we can't get transportation across that bridge in an emergency situation. So I thought it best just to do a general memo, speaking to the incident and speaking to moving forward. So I think we've covered off just about every question that came through on social media or through email to the city. But if not, and there's something else we've left out, please let me know and we will get an answer to it. But this was designed to hopefully answer most people's questions. And also attached to this report is the agreement with the RDKB for using the ATV in emergency situations for crossing the pedestrian bridge. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Butler on this, Councillor Benson?
Just for under 2.3, it says that to the best of our knowledge, no one was held up from seeking medical attention, and this was confirmed today in our Community Safety Task Force meeting by Deputy Chief Galmore.
That nobody was. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Benson. Councillor Hanson. Go ahead.
Thank you. I understand the purpose of fencing, but does that alleviate any of our pedestrians or citizens from walking through on the Second Ave side? If we were to block that access, are people unable then to walk underneath the bridge to get along the riverfront there?
Your worship, we have made sure that no pedestrian accesses will be impaired when they do install the fencing.
Okay. Okay, is that everything, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, I think you're going frozen there.
Okay. She's again. Is there any other questions for Ms. Butler?
Yes, that's everything. Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Okay. She's still frozen. Okay, so the recommendation is before you. And that is item 2.4. And the recommendation is that council receive the August 19th, 2024 memorandum titled Update Victoria Street Bridge Encampment Fire and Bylaw Services for Information. Councillor Martin and Councillor Wilson, all those in favor? Thank you. That was carried unanimously. Okay, item 2.5. The strata conversion policy, number GG 006.3. On to Ms. Butler.
Thank you. At our recent meeting in which council considered a strata conversion application, council spoke to the fact that our guidelines that we had been using seemed rather outdated. So it was a request that staff have a look at those guidelines and see if we could come up with a more updated policy that would address one of the main concerns of council, which was giving the tenants of a property that was up for strata conversion an opportunity to present to council. So I have done some research and looked at a few different policies and have presented this one for council consideration.
Mayor Jones.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor.
I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation just because it pertains to some related.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Sandy, if you don't mind, just give me a text when we're ready to go.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Okay, is there any questions or comments for Ms. Butler before we, Councillor Cashel, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Jones. First of all, how's my audio? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have a little bit of a narrative here, and I appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns over the new policy. I have 2 points of concern. Firstly,
I can't hear Nick.
Yeah, we can hear her, hear him.
I'm hoping I can get on record for this.
There he is.
But I am in a vehicle and there's intermittent. So I'm doing my best here to put forward my argument. But anyway, I have 2 major concerns, 2 areas of concern. Firstly, when the policy talks about council will consider the current amount of rental accommodation available to meet the needs of present and future residents of Trail. In my opinion, this is it's vague and it's very subjective to interpretation. And I would like to see a minimum threshold requirement before applications are being received by staff. I believe that if we have this threshold, then it makes point 2 of the proposed policy more practical, because in that part of the policy, we're looking at a minimum threshold. We're looking at relocating people. So the question is, if we use Trail's current situation, which has I would estimate a vacancy rate close to 0%. The question is, where do these folks relocate to? So by having this threshold in there, it eliminates that very problem. The other, if we use, even the old policy had a 5% vacancy rate, which was recommended. And I'd also like to refer to Castlegar's community plan, which was completed in 2023, 6.6.23, which states the city will restrict strata conversion of existing residential rental buildings of 4 or more units when the vacancy rate falls below 3%. I would like to see the same threshold of 3% put into any policy that we are putting forward. My second concern is the impact that these applications have on the tenants. And this became very with the tenant who's been in the strata, the Shavers Bench apartments for over 20 years, very stressed out about the whole application process. So it got me looking at the whole idea of making these same tenants come into a council meeting and the amount of stress and angst it would put on them. Part of that policy that's vague is, what if, for example, only a minority of the tenants show up to speak to the matter? Does that mean that the absence of the other tenants not showing up, does that work in favor then of the applicants? So it's not a measurable policy. Like, what are we looking at? What's our outcome? And I think we need measurables in that as well. I do like a policy that they have in Penticton, which basically says that unless you have 75% applicants, the applicant is required to provide documentation to the satisfaction of the city that at least 75% of the tenants are in favor of or not objecting to conversion. So we need some kind of a measurable in there. I appreciate that the city of Kelowna has the hearing. I think that was information that I did provide to Mr. McClure. But on second thought, I've also looked at other policies as well. And that hearing or that opportunity for tenants to come in and speak to council is not replicated in any other municipal policy that I've seen. And that's probably why, because it probably takes into consideration the amount of stress and anxiety it puts on the tenants in question. So those are the measurables that I think are needed in policy, and those thresholds, to me, they're not there. I believe that we're in the middle of a housing crisis. I think it's important that we protect our limited supply of dedicated rental stock, and we must make decisions that are in the best interest of all residents, especially those with lower incomes, that renting is their only option. And I just can't support this new policy as it is written for those reasons. Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, finally, but one final point. The policy that I shared from Kelowna has a 5% threshold. So the chances of Kelowna having any hearings on strata conversions are very, very limited. Okay, that concludes my narrative. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Cashel. Is there any other questions or comments? Did you want to speak to that, what Mr.
No, we
Cashel?
would just need a motion put on the floor in order
Yeah.
to amend the policy.
So do I need to make them, excuse me, Mayor Jones?
No, it's okay, Nick. Sorry, I didn't see Councillor Hansen's hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Hansen.
Thank you. And please forgive me if I freeze. I have to agree with Councillor Cashel. I've spoken, their tenancy situation right now, we are in a dire need of rentals. And I think if we put it in such a fashion without having a consideration of what our rental situation is like, we're wasting staff time to be able to move these things forward. If we don't have any, if there's no rentals, why would we give opportunities for people to, potentially evict those people? The other issue that, I think we need to consider is that there are a lot of tenants that are at fear of being evicted. So the likelihood they would even want to come and speak against their landlord for fear of eviction, I think we need to very, very, seriously look at that. If we did, I would want it to be in a situation where it was closed, or it wasn't where the landlord could then say, oh, Bob said that, they don't want this. So now Bob's getting his eviction letter for some reason. So I would like to agree with what Councillor Cashel said. I would like to make a motion that we amend the policy to include a minimal threshold of at least not less than 3% vacancy for a period of at least 6 months prior to the application.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can second that motion, Mayor Jones.
Thank you. Yep, I can see you, Nick. Councillor Cashel, there's a seconder. Okay. All those in favor of that?
Can I ask a question about that?
Oh, sure. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Benson.
So currently is this the housing needs? How do we know what the rental rate is? Because when this was brought up at a previous meeting, we didn't have the data.
Yeah, it's hard.
Is it
I don't necessarily know. I see that there's some outdated numbers from CAC, but I think they've kind of said, they may not be as granular, or I don't know where we kind of get that set number myself.
Right, okay.
Would you like me to read the motion back?
Sure, go ahead.
That the draft strata conversion policy presented at the August 19th, 2024 GOC meeting be amended by including a minimum threshold of not less than 3% for at least 6 months prior rental accommodation before strata conversion application is considered. Does that reflect your motion, Councillor Hanson?
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll go for the vote, please. All those in favor of the recommendation from Councillor Hanson?
This is for the 3%.
For the 3%, yep, that's what, okay. And all those opposed? So that was carried. So I guess,
And through your worship, was there a motion coming forward to amend it regarding the presentation to council that we're deleting that part? Because this was just to include the 3%, not the second part of Councillor Cashell's.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. I'm happy now where we're at because I don't feel that we're going to be having any hearings anytime soon, but I do think in the long shot, in the long term, I would like to see an amendment put in there as well that the applicant provide documentation proving that at least 75% of the tenants in question are eligible to buy or do not oppose the strata plan for conversion.
Are you putting that through as a motion?
I would make that as a motion. I think that would really complement and fully make our policy, in the long term, really beneficial to the city. So yes, I would make that as a motion.
Can I ask a question?
yes, Councillor Benson, go ahead.
What makes you, why 75, Nick? Councillor Newcastle?
Well, that's a great question, Councillor Benson. I like a tangible. I mean, it can be, I read one, or I think maybe Vernon or somewhere has 66%. I think we need
We can't hear you, Councillor Cashel.
You cut out there, Nick.
Councillor Benson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
I really believe we need a threshold. I'm using 75% because I see that at Abbotsford and I saw that. I know somewhere else I read there's 66%. So the important part of that policy is having a tangible, measurable amount. And that's why I'm recommending 75%.
Okay, just hold on, Councillor Cashel. We'll make sure we got that correct. That motion.
I may need a little help here, please. I've got down so far the draft strata conversion policy presented at the August 19th, 2024 GOC meeting be amended to include that a strata conversion applicant must provide documentation that at least 75% of the residents, did you say agree?
Are in a position to purchase and agree to the conversion plan.
To purchase and agree to the conversion plan. Okay, I'll just read that one more time. That the draft strata conversion policy presented at the August 19th GOC meeting be amended to include that a strata conversion applicant provide documentation that at least 75% of the residents are in a positive or in a position to purchase and agree to the conversion plan.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Yes, that covers it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have a question on this though. Let's get a seconder for the motion and then I can
I'll
answer the
second it
question.
for the
Counselor
discussion.
Martin, okay. I do have a question before we move forward though. How does that work with each individual project that is a strata and they want to make that changes? Like, is this, we're talking just about Shaver's Bench here? Counselor Cashel, or are we talking about everyone that comes before us now? It will fall under
We're-
those guidelines.
Well, existing rental stock, Mayor Jones. I mean, these two developers, these two investors from Hamilton purchased 3 rental complexes. 2 are condos or apartments on Highway Drive and then Shaver's Bench. So it applies to them. It applies to all rental stock. We need to preserve it, and these are the policies that I think are in the best interest of the city.
Okay, Ms. Butler, go
Your
ahead.
worship, I just want to point out that in the policy, it does refer to small scale strata conversions of 2 to 4 units are just handled by staff. Is that still okay in the policy? That we're just talking about the bigger units?
Only the bigger units is what I'm referring to, Ms. Butler. 5 or more.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you for that clarification.
Okay, so we go ahead, Counselor Hanson.
Because this is only on existing, right? A strata conversion. So a unit that is getting converted to a strata. It does not apply to brand new buildings that someone is going to stratify upon building. Clarified, Ms. Butler, please?
That's correct.
So it doesn't hurt us for building, development, any of that. It's only converting already existing spaces to stratified units.
That's correct. This
And
is
then
a
be
strata, yeah,
sold off.
Okay.
that is
In
correct.
essence,
Existing buildings.
if someone chose to do that.
Sorry, yeah, I missed. I think you cut out there. Did you guys catch that?
Yes.
Just for existing rentals to strata, Doug, not new development.
It's, yeah. Okay. So do we need to read Nick's motion again? Are you guys okay with it? Just for clarification, could you
clarification?
please, yeah.
That
Thank
the
you.
draft strata conversion policy presented at the August 19, 2024 GOC meeting be amended to include that a strata conversion applicant provide documentation that at least 75% of their residents are in a position to purchase and agree to the conversion plan.
Okay, all those in favor? Four. It's carried.
Who is opposed? But that's yourself?
Counselor Cashel, are you opposed? Counselor Wilson, Counselor Hanson, and Counselor Benson? Oh. Okay, let's, can we do that again, please? Who's in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't see Tia.
Wilson, Martin, Cashel, and Hanson.
I didn't see Tia's hand.
She's frozen.
Oh, okay.
Was there?
Okay, those opposed?
Oh, I don't think
Oh,
Tia's
wait,
is
no,
opposed.
I don't, no, I think she's frozen.
Okay.
She just
Okay,
got
thank you.
frozen. I think we should confirm with her.
Counselor Hanson, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Are you opposed to it or are you approving it?
I am in favor of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
And your worship, in a follow-up motion that we need
Yes,
is that the draft strata conversion policy as presented at the August 19, 24 GOC meeting be adopted as amended.
okay, all those in favor? I guess.
So your worship, it will
I
come
know.
back at the regular meeting
Yeah.
with the amendments in it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any opposed to the policy as amended?
Was there any opposed to the motion as amended? I was.
That's what I thought.
Okay, thank you. That, because the breaking up of the Zoom and that, it got a little bit confusing there. Okay.
Since
So,
this is like GOC meeting and a committee meeting, can I ask a question on?
Yes.
Could we get an idea, like a proper data point of where we're at for rentals? Because I feel that would,
It's very difficult to do.
okay,
I approached a local property manager
yeah,
just to get her sense of placements within the community,
Yeah.
and that's where we were given the information that it's
Okay.
very low, if not between 0 and 1%.
okay,
It would be a tremendous project to
okay.
collect the data to get an amount that is,
Yeah, it's just hard to put a number on it if we're not gonna have a number to,
mhm.
you know what I mean? If we're
Yeah.
gonna say it's at 3%, but we don't
Yeah.
have any numbers saying where we're at anyway.
We could do
so-
some research into how other communities are determining it, because I think just the BC Mortgage and Housing Corp isn't
It's just-
doing it
okay.
anymore.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, just one moment, I have to get Councillor Butler back.
okay, but having that conversation and those motions and that, is there any, I guess, thought towards having the owners of the strata come in and do a presentation with the,
No.
with the, okay, that's not gonna happen, that's done, they're not gonna do any work with, us on that strata, no?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we just, there he is, there's Councillor Butler. Okay, we're moving on to item 2.6, and that's the Community Safety Task Force, terms of reference. And that would be, Councillor, Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just a follow-up report coming out of the minutes from the last Community Safety Task Force meeting, not the one that was today, but the one previously, with a request to amend the terms of reference for their membership, and also for staff to be directed to advertise for those vacancies on that task force.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is before you. Is there anyone that wants to move? I'll read the recommendation out. And that is that council adopt the amended Community Safety Task Force terms of reference attached to this report, and that staff be directed to advertise to the public for the vacant seats on the Community Safety Task Force, up to 2 community members, 1 being from the senior citizen community, 1 at-large community member, and up to 1 business community member. Councillor Benson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Martin? Now I would ask that the Community Safety Task Force Chair and Co-Chair, if you had any comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jones. The reason behind this is that we are short on the Community Safety Task Force, the standing members, but also we have to go to the community as we did with the, for instance, the Airport Committee and the OCP, just to be fair to everyone. There are 2 individuals in the community, well, one lives in this community and one does not, who have expressed interest in joining the Community Safety Task Force. We need to make it a fair, we can't just cherry pick who we want. We need to do it fair for everybody. So that's the reason behind this. And we wanted to include, to add the a bylaw officer, British Columbia Emergency Health Services representative. And what was the other one? That was it, and the ones that are mentioned here. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask. Councillor Benson, if you want to add anything to that.
No, you covered it very well.
Councillor Wilson had a question?
I just have to run. I have a meeting at 3:30. I couldn't get out of here at work. I'm just gonna close my Zoom. Sorry, I don't have a question. As soon as I'm done, I'm just gonna come up to City Hall. So I'll see you guys in a bit.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanson, you have your hand up.
I was just wondering, as a community member, does it in the policy, or I'd like to make an amendment so that we include it, that they're residents of Trail.
I would leave that.
That would be a motion,
Mhm.
that the Community Safety Task Force terms of reference be further amended, that membership must include residents of the city of Trail.
Can I just further to that? Sorry, Ms. Butler, I want to understand that the community members that are representing, sorry, the city of Trail are residents of the city of Trail. I understand if it's people that are in different levels with IHA, BC Ambulance, et cetera, that aren't necessarily residents, but that's their role through their employment. But I think the residents that are actually being on the committee should be residents of the community as a whole.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Martin, go ahead.
And it's to staff. Is that the same in any other committee? Like, for instance, the airport committee?
Not
Oh,
necessarily.
okay. Because wasn't someone, I think, Tabitha?
Mhm. I think it also just to kind of remember that we are a hub in terms of Trail. So a lot of people do come here to do business. I think at least one of our current community members is not a Trail resident, but still brings a lot to the table because they're in Trail every day. So I think it's important to be affiliated with Trail, whether that's you live in Trail proper or work in Trail or have ties to the community. In terms of actually having like a postal code in Trail, I would be willing to look at everyone. And again, it's a council's decision, so we would review all of them, including where they live, and vote based on that. It's my feeling.
Sorry, before I get to Councillor Cashel, I think I need a seconder to that motion that Councillor Hassan.
Oh, sorry, I can second
Yeah,
it for
thank you.
discussion.
Councillor Benson seconded. Okay, Councillor Cashel, did you have your hand up?
Well, I might have just suggested maybe instead of Councillor Hanson, or business owner, but I really like what, so I'm going to trust that Councillor Benson and Councillor Martin will have a handle on who should be the appropriate parties on that. So that's where I stand on that. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
You'll have a say too, Nick, as it would be similar to what we did for the OCP or the airport and the OCP. It would
Brown bag.
we would put the names into a brown bag.
Okay, so Councillor Hanson, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Can I rescind that amendment, please? Based on the fact, thank you, Councillor Benson, for reminding me that we all are going to be voting on the individuals as they're presented like the other committees. So I'll rescind that. Sorry for creating extra work, Ms. Butler.
No problem. That's why we have GOC.
Okay, so we'll move on to back to the regular or the previous recommendation that was on the table, that council adopt the amended Community Safety Task Force terms of reference attached to the report, and that staff be directed to advertise to the public for the vacant seats on the Community Safety Task Force, up to 2 community members, one being the senior citizen community and one at-large community member, and up to 1 business community member. So all those in favor of the original motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Mayor Jones,
Okay.
May I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm losing cell service, and I'm about 2 minutes away from seeing 2 grandchildren that I haven't seen in over a year. So I'm going to be, can I respectfully remove myself from the meeting?
Sure.
I'm asking for your permission. I apologize, but we're in a cell service. There's no cell service either in this remote part of the country where I'm at. So thank you very much, and I'll hopefully reconnect. I hope to reconnect soon on the internet at the residence that I'll be visiting. So thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 3, grants and aid. sponsorships, and the first one on the agenda is 3.1. And that is the Gamus Night application for cash grant of $1,000. Is there anyone that wants to speak to that or has any comments on it? Councillor Hanson?
I'm just inquiring, is this a not-for-profit society, like we've been giving fundraising, like with financials and everything? Or is this just a group asking for funding that's a private group?
Well, my understanding is that when I read the application for the grant and aid, it's a group of people that have gotten together and have requested, are requesting some money to keep this games night going. Okay. So does anyone want to move the item 3.1, the application for a cash grant? Councillor Butler? Is there a seconder? Councillor Benson? All those in favor? I guess it's carried. Thank you. Item 3.2 is the Beaver Valley Skating Club, and their request for sponsor is for $500. Anybody, any questions or comments on that one?
Where did you see I just saw the TBD number in terms of the amount.
Yeah, they had several sponsorship options available.
Oh, okay,
On page
okay.
2 of their
Gotcha.
request. So it'll be up to councils.
Okay.
So does someone want to make that motion for sponsor? Councillor Benson, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hanson?
In the amount, please?
500.
Okay.
500. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried unanimously. Item 3.3 is the 44 Engineer Squadron, 39 Combat Engineer Regiment, request for a cash grant of $1,000. And this one is to help with their 75th anniversary activities. Does someone want to make that motion? Councillor Benson, Councillor Hanson, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried unanimously. And the Trail Historical Society, a request for cash grant of $5,000. So I have a question, because these are my relatives, like, should I recuse myself from this? Because they are moving the headstones, right, from Victoria to Trail. I don't need to. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place here.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
Declaring any perceived conflict of interest.
My understanding is they're not moving headstones.
They're
No,
just,
Cleaning the
just,
ones up down here.
yeah, and it's unmarked is what my
Right.
understanding was.
Yes, yes.
So it's.
Okay.
I don't think you're getting anything out of it.
No.
I just want to be really, really careful.
I think you just
that's
wanted
all.
Nara to know that
Yeah.
you're related to.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Okay, so, does anybody, want to make that motion for, request for cash grant of $5,000 to the Trail Historical Society? Okay, well, I'll make the motion. Is there a seconder?
No.
Councillor Butler? All those in favor?
I don't know what happened there. I thought someone said something.
Carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, item number 4 is a resolution to adjourn the Governance and Operations Committee portion of the meeting and immediately resolve into in-camera meeting. And the recommendation is due to the Community Charters, Section 91C, the Community Charters, Section 91E, Community Charters, Section 91G, and the Community Charter Section 91L. Is there a motion? Counselor Benson, Counselor Butler, all those in favor? Thank you. That was carried unanimously.